And one thing I remember, Mr. Chairman, is that you can't get sick. If you actually own a small business and you don't open up, you don't get paid. I've seen my mom and dad go to work dog sick because if they didn't open up, they didn't get paid. And every time there was a cost of doing business, it had to be absorbed. And there's only so much you can pass on to the customer. Inflation is going to be an increasing problem in this country. So I want the American people to understand that there's a consequence to spending all this money. There's a consequence to flooding the zone with money. And when you start imposing cost into the economy, it will eventually be passed on to you because people are in business to make a profit. Now, Walmart. The theory of the case that the chairman espouses is that the CEO of Walmart could make $20 million, not 22, and they could absorb an increase in minimum wage and not give stock dividends, not pay their top people so much, and they just choose not to do that. Well, we can have our discussion about that concept, but here's where we should agree, that if you're running the sanitary cafe, you don't have that luxury because there's just only so much money coming in the door. And if you have to double the cost of paying a worker, you're probably not going to hire anybody else. And teenagers and senior citizens benefit from jobs in the hospitality industry and the service industry, make a little extra money that first job. But if you increase cost on the restaurants throughout this country right now, you're going to crush them, Mr. Chairman. In South Carolina, it's anticipated that 50% of the restaurants that have been hit by COVID will never come back. The state government and local government are mandating reduced seating because of COVID. They're mandating increased cost of doing business, and restaurants are struggling to stay alive. The PPP loans have been helpful, but they're not going to be around forever. And the bottom line, Mr. Chairman, is if we impose a new mandate on the expense side combined with mandates to reduce revenue, we're going to crush these people. You have been championing this idea for a long time. I would just urge you that during the COVID crisis, the last thing the federal government should be doing is doubling the cost of doing businesses for small businesses in the hospitality service industry that are barely making it to begin with. And this has got nothing to do with COVID. It's in the COVID package. So I hope that you will understand that the 1.4 million jobs that CBO anticipates to be lost are going to come from people at the lower end. The Walmart guy's not going to lose his job. Who's going to lose his job? Some teenager or senior citizen who's able to get a little extra money and start building a resume. So my belief is there will be a time to look at increasing the minimum wage. That during the COVID crisis, this is the worst possible time to increase mandates on small businesses because they're barely making it to begin with. And I look forward to working with you about how could we, in a responsible way, increase the minimum wage. But right now is not the time, in my view. And the construct you set up about corporate America versus everybody else, we'll have decades to talk about that, years to talk about that. I would just implore you to think of what we're doing at a time of restaurants and hotels barely hanging on because of the restrictions on travel. The golf industry in Myrtle Beach has been hit hard because people can't come and go like they used to. Is that now is not the time to do this, and I would just ask my Democratic colleagues to think long and hard about what you're doing. Because at a time when business is barely making it, if this ever became law, we would crush them. And people have worked too hard, too long, too many hours, too many worrisome conversations to keep their business alive for the federal government to come in and crush them. And that's what this would do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lindsey.